I'd like to call to order Smyrna Planning Commission for September 2018. At this time, we'd ask everyone to stand for a prayer and pledge, please.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for the day, Lord. We're so thankful for the blessings that you've given us, Father. We thank you for the opportunity and the privilege to live in such a great town, Lord. Father, we just pray that you'll just bless those that protect us. Pray be with the firemen and the police officers, Lord, and just ask that you be with them. Lord, as we come tonight to work on the business of our city, we just pray that you'll just bless us and give us the knowledge and the wisdom to make the right decisions, Lord. We pray now that you just go with us, and I pray this in Christ's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 3, no citizens' comments at this time.
That's correct.
Moving on to item number 4, approval of the minutes. Do we have any corrections or additions to the minutes as they were handed out? Not. Do I have a motion?
I move we approve.
Have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 5, new business, annexation, zoning, plan of service. Item number 1, Sean Collins, staff comments.
So this is a request for annexation with an accompanying R3 zoning request. It's for part of a parcel of land and it's addressed at 4750 Allenville Road. It's about 19 acres, 19 or so acres are there that has been requested to be annexed, and then an entirety of another parcel addressed at 7616 Rocky Fork Allenville Road. It's about 6 acres, so a little over 25 acres total has been requested with this request. Currently zoned RM in Rutherford County. Surrounding zoning is a mix of R3 and the Amberton PRD in town, and then RM in Rutherford County. Land use plan would support a mix of office, retail, multifamily here. So they have requested again R3. This would be served by the town with all services except water. This is served by Consolidated Utility District for water service. The map shows that there's a nearby request that's passed that you all looked at last month. Has passed first reading, and that's in the kind of the northwest of this request. The parcels that have been requested are in green, and this is kind of in that orange color there, like yellow-orange color, kind of northwest of the R3 zoning there. That's passed first reading, so it's in the same general area as what you looked at last month. But I guess that is all that I've got.
Staff recommends approval.
Yes.
Do we have any questions, comments? Do I have a motion?
I'll move we approve.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Count me as not voting. I'm not involved in this, but I've had some discussion with the property owners. So.
Anything else? Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Under B, rezoning request, Christina's Dance Studio. Staff comments.
This is a rezoning request at 1071 Rock Springs Road. Property is currently zoned C4. It's about 7,500, 7-acre property. The request is to rezone this to a PUD. The surrounding zoning is a mix of R1, C2, and C4. And land use plan again would support a mix of office, retail, and multifamily here. The proposed PUD is basically to allow to continue the C4 zoning as far as uses are uses, setbacks, that sort of thing. But the request and the reason for the request of PUD is they do want to add, to allow the use of an apartment on this property. So it'll be a mixture of the C4 uses as well as one apartment use there. We did receive a pattern book and proposed layout of the property, and all that is required under the PUD, and that is all in keeping with what we require there, and everything is in order there for that. So I guess, again, that's all that I've got on that.
They're tearing down the existing house, building a new structure on this lot.
Correct.
Questions? Have a motion.
Move to approve.
Have a second.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Rezoning request, Legacy Luxury Townhomes. Staff comments.
Yeah, this is a rezoning request from C2. Current property is currently zoned C2 to rezone it to PRD. This has frontage on at Legacy Drive as well as Lee Victory Parkway. It's about 8.5 acres of property. Surrounding zoning is a mix of R3, R6, and C2. Land use plan would support commercial development in this area. The proposed PRD is for 52 townhome units. We had several comments. I'll kind of go through those. We'd asked them to show the proposed amenities in compliance with the zoning ordinance, and they have done that. They've shown the sitting areas and the playground areas as required, so we can mark that off. Number 5, show and label proposed minimum setbacks from the adjoining property lines, and they have done that, so that can be removed. Number 6, the bicycle and pedestrian plan has a greenway running along Stewart Creek across this property, and we'd asked them to show an easement, and they have shown that on their side of the creek. Number 7 was regarding a truck turning movement for a fire truck, and they have addressed that. Number 8 was to correct a driveway at Unit 18 and show a double car at Unit 46, and that's been taken care of. And number 9 was to add a hydrant to protect lots 1 to 19 or units 1 to 19, and they have addressed that as well. So basically 4 through 9 have all been addressed. Number 10, Legacy Court. It was approved as a public street. It was approved as a 5-lot commercial subdivision, and it was, again, a Legacy Court coming off of Legacy Drive was approved as a public street. It has been built up to except for the last layer of asphalt. They are proposing that it be private street as a part of this PRD. So if it is to be private, we just had recommended and would require that the 2 commercial buildings will have to be subdivided and egress easements recorded, since they would not have access to a public street, or at least not that public street. And the easements for existing and proposed public utilities will have to be recorded as well, because there are some existing utilities in that street that are public, and so those easements will have to be recorded as a part of that too. We did receive a pattern book on this again. There are, again, 52 units, or a mix of some with 1-car garage, some with 2. Masonry, brick, and hardy mix as far as the materials or what is proposed. Again.
Do you have a count on the 2-car and 1-car?
We do.
Here it is.
I don't recall off the top of my head.
On the
They
5
did-
units,
they did
it was
provide
half
that.
and 3.
18 two-car garages and 34 with one car. Basically, it's the end units of all the buildings are the ones that have two.
And then they also provided extra parking areas.
There
in
are two spaces in every driveway
Yes.
that are
And then
side by
other
side.
than that, there are extra parking in the
Yes, they've got
complex.
17 spaces that are outside of any driveway or garage, yeah.
Put their recreational area right there too, between the buildings instead of behind the buildings.
Right.
That's a nice feature.
Yeah, you do, some of the playground area is down behind a few of the buildings, but for the most part, it is kind of in between, kind of in the, kind of more centrally located to all the units.
Well, the thing that I like the materials that are involved as far as the brick, the hardy and stone, and then maybe even more importantly so is that there's a master down, and that's something that we've discussed with several projects that have been brought before us with our 55 and up folks, as far as being able to have a master down and then still having the flexibility if family comes. You still have an upstairs space as well.
I think the master is at, the master down is the one with the two-car garage in it.
It's on some of the plans, yeah.
Yeah.
And some of the one-car garages have the master down as well.
Yeah.
The two things I like is, it's 8.5 acres. The density could be a whole lot more based on the acreage. So it's a reasonable, it's 6 units an
About
acre.
6, a little over 6.
What you can get with a single-family 6,000 square foot lot, which is allowed. But I think the way that they have addressed the parking
That's been coming up.
is much more acceptable to me than other projects that we have seen. So,
The parking and materials both appear to be a better product than some we've seen recently. So.
Well, the other thing I'd point out is that it's currently zoned C2, and just from an economic development standpoint, you're not going to get anything to develop C2. And actually, I don't think you'd want to, because that's a hard buffer when you're against R3. And if you go back to our comprehensive plan, we talked about going from commercial to, neighborhood commercial to a little higher density to medium and then low density, and it fits the mold.
And you do have existing R6 on one
Correct.
side as well.
the R6
Exactly.
across the road, and there's probably only really 2 houses that
Yeah.
the backyards back up to this property.
And this product probably a step up from the R6 that's there.
Oh, yeah.
The road, the reason we can fix that is, I think you told me earlier, is the plat has not been recorded, so it's
Correct,
technically not a public street at this point in time.
correct. It's been approved as a public street, but it has not actually been recorded.
It's not been recorded.
Right.
But that would need to be done before we would entertain any type of site plan for sure, wouldn't it?
Yeah, they'll need to correct, I say correct it, but yeah,
Fix it.
to create the commercial lots as separate lots and create those easements for utilities as well as ingress and egress would need to be taken care of before we could look at the site plan and start issuing building permits and that sort of thing.
Other questions or comments?
If it is a private road, then at some point, they'll create the walkability from there to across to the stores. And
Well, they are
there's a
showing
bus
si-
stop, I
yeah,
noticed on their concept plans.
Right, the bus, which that was primarily for school children.
Right.
But there are sidewalks shown along there, along that street, of course, internal to the development as well. So you might have to yeah, some sort of crosswalk or something we might want to look at.
That was my question.
Right, at the bus stop
Yeah.
area.
Okay, other questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll move we approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any other questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on, under new business, preliminary plat, Colony Estates, Phase 1, staff comments.
Yeah, this is a plat for phase 1 of the plat anyway, that you all looked at a PUD a few months ago. Where Ryan Hill Drive would be extended as a private street. It is a PRD. It's 31.62 acres. It's 8 lots proposed in this phase. We had a few comments, several of which are standard comments, 1, 2, and 3, which would need to remain. Number 4, we can take number 4 off regarding the silt fence. Number 5 and 6 are regarding fire truck. They did provide a fire truck movement a plan, but it appears like it's still the truck would actually not. They couldn't make that turn without leaving the roadway. So we'd ask them to still look at that roadway, maybe tweaking that so they could remain on the roadway. The fire department did look at that and requested that. Number 6 was a condition of the PUD regarding fire department access to each lot. These lots are going to be set well off the road, and there's some pretty steep topography there, and so they do have a concern about that. And basically, they would be looking at that on a case by case. These are all going to be custom homes and different builders and different things, and just asked that they've requested, I guess, to look at that on a lot by lot basis as they begin to be built on. And then we did look, the fire department again did request, and we did look at this. They're looking at removing fire hydrant, and then, but they basically said, or requested that instead of moving that hydrant, just keep it where it's at, and then add another hydrant within the cul-de-sac area there of the private road. So to provide fire coverage for those 8 lots. Those lots are all going to be about 120 feet, I think, at minimum off the road and that sort of thing. So, so that's not a comment that's on your list. That's a new comment. So, so basically, just those last 3 I just mentioned, and then the first 3 that are standard comments there.
Now then, on number 5, accommodate the fire truck on each lot. Will we need a comment on the plat if we're gonna look at it on a case-by-case basis?
Probably do need to add a note to the plat,
A note
something
to
to
the
that
plat?
on the final plat. And this is just preliminary, but on the final plat, we would need a note that each of those, for those lots, there's 3, well, of course, those are not going to be looked at with this plat. There's 3 lots that are coming off the public road on Skinner Drive. That's not an issue there. But for this section of phase 1, those 8 lots, we would need a note.
Put a note on
Put
the
a note.
plat, and then everybody knows that they have to
Right,
provide that information.
correct.
All right. What else we have?
I move to approve with staff comments and notations on the plat.
We have a second.
Second.
Trey. Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Under new business, item D, final plats, Cedar Park, second re-subdivision, lot 1.
Yeah, this is a commercial subdivision. 6 lots, 8.5 acres, again, zone C2. We have one comment left, we're just adding the owner's signature. This is consistent with the preliminary plat for this. It is under construction. The roadways are and everything currently. But it's, again, it's consistent with the approved preliminary plat and would be recommended approval.
Not that it matters, but
Would
what
they?
was the change?
There's nothing, there's, as far as, oh, this is, as far as the second re-subdivision?
Yeah.
They had, there's a lot 2 and a lot 3, which are, lot 2 is built on, that's the Fresenius kidney specialist folks. Lot
Okay.
3 is actually, currently has an easement. This would be abandoned with this and would have access to this new road, Medical Park. So then you had lot 1, which is everything else, and so this is just the second time they're re-subdividing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? Have a motion?
I move we approve.
Have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Under final plats, number 2, Seven Oaks Business Center. Staff comments.
Yeah, this is at Allenville Road and Seven Oaks Boulevard. Property's also frontage on Lee Victory Parkway. C2 zoning, 3 lots, 6.4 acres. These are actually 3 lots that exist already. They are re-subdividing and moving a property line between 5 and 6, as well as adding easements for detention and drainage, as well as new easements for utilities, because there are several utilities that are going to be relocated as a part of the racetrack development that you all looked at last month on lot 6. So this is just clearing all those easements up and creating them where they need to be, as well as the property boundaries. Again, we had only the one comment about the owner's signature.
Have we heard anything on that access point that we had a lot of discussion
I have not heard
on?
anything, no.
Just curious. Any other questions? Have a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Under final plats, item number 3, Sterling at Stonecrest. Staff comments.
Yeah, this is a final plat. It's creating the right-of-way, as well as at four buildable lots and a couple of billboard lots on the Sterling at Stonecrest developments on Rock Springs Road. It's 4 lots, or 26.86 acres. Part of their Sterling at Stonecrest PUD. We only had one comment regarding the owner's signature. So,
The Great Circle, that's a public street?
yes. They were originally discussing that it would not be, but they have, essentially we'll be building it as a public street and do want to dedicate it as a public street.
Any other questions or comments?
It's shaping up over there.
Has construction started?
Yes.
Or are they just site work?
It's primarily site work now. I mean, they are building the assisted living right now is the main thing under construction. I think they are doing all the other utilities and everything else as well.
But the assisted facility is actually under construction?
Bring it
Yes,
up.
it is.
Yeah, I actually understand it may be completed somewhere near in the first quarter of 19.
All right. Anything else? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the staff comments.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other question or discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Under 5E site plans, Hummingbird Hill, staff comments.
This is a proposed site plan for Hummingbird Hill, which is positioned on approximately 8.57 acres, located on Mason Tucker Drive across from Keel Court. Property is currently zoned PUD, and the proposed use is for multifamily residential, which is allowed by right in this PUD zone. The property is bound to the north by vacant lots, to the east by Mason Tucker Drive, to the south and west by single-family residential houses. Surrounding zoning consists of R1, R2, R3, C4, and PUD. As proposed, the site may be accessed from Mason Tucker Drive. Square footage of vehicular use area, 52,690 square foot, which would require 5,269 square footage of landscaping. Applicant is proposing for 6,250 square feet. Total parking required of 144, and they're proposing for 150. Required handicap spacing, 5 spaces, and they're proposing for 6 at this site. Landscape plan that was submitted by the applicant shows a variety of trees and shrubs which are planted around the perimeter of the parking lot, building, and in the landscape islands. There's also a landscape buffer that is shown between the C4 lots and R2 lots to the south and west. Architectural elevations show primary material of brick and hardy plank to be used on the southeast and northeast sides, with hardy plank on the northwest and southwest elevations. The proposed site is not located within the 100-year floodplain, and the future land use plan is suitable for commercial and medium density single-family residential development. A couple standard comments and staff comments as well. Staff comments 2, 3, 7, 8, 10, and 11 have all been addressed. Staff comment 1, to complete a fire hydrant test. And let's see, staff comment 4, to indicate the location of all exterior doors on the site plan and ensure elevations match the door locations. The second half of that comment has been addressed regarding the accessible route in the back of the building. Comment 5, to add a fire loop around the building and must be located outside the collapse zone. 6, fire flow design must be greater than 1,500 gallons per minute. Staff comment 9, to indicate driveway slope, and that is it for our comments, and staff would recommend approval with those comments being addressed.
Excuse me, what did you say about 5, the fire loop?
5, the fire loop must be around the building. That was a fire department comment. So
That's not shown?
no, he looked at it today and said it was not shown.
It has been extended to along the back one side, but I think they were looking at looping it.
Yeah,
Needing it to be looped around the building, I think was what they had requested.
It's gonna be tough to do out there. Gotta retain it.
So what exactly are we asking for?
The fire loop is basically, it goes all the way around the building.
It's a water main. It's not
It's
a
just
driveway.
It's not a drive, it's just
a water.
It's a water main, it's a water, right. The drive is there, it's just the water main is what they're asking
Okay.
for.
Is this sprinkled?
Yes,
Okay. How many units? I missed that.
96.
Is this the same property we looked at a couple of years ago where it was more of a senior type development?
Yeah, I mean, which this still is a senior development.
This that we're looking at
Yeah,
right now?
yeah, the PUD approval was for 96 units, senior housing. It was laid out differently. You had it was kind of a rectangular area with a courtyard in the middle. And it was building was a little different too, as far as because they actually had and as part of the PUD, they were gonna have some commercial
Some
uses.
commercial live-work building.
Yeah, they
there
were
or
gonna have a
something.
commercial uses kind of on
Got
the
it.
bottom floor facing Mason Tucker. That was gonna kind of be a partial floor. It wasn't gonna go throughout the building. Then you would have, above that would be 2 stories of the apartments.
That was several years ago, and I think
It was
So
approved.
is it-
recession probably.
9
Is it
years ago.
just 2 stories now and not 3 then?
No, this is
Three.
this is 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was some water issues or questions about supply and
There was concern going up the hill, right,
Yes.
adequate pressure, and that's why we had asked them to do that water main or the flow test and all that.
has that been done?
It has
or
not been done yet, no.
We're still requiring that?
Right.
Okay.
Kevin, how will the 55 and older be protected? Is it in the deed, restrictions? How will that be applied?
It would have to be the same way we've done it in the past. Jeff. I can't
Like we did
remember
Nancy's
exactly
Place?
What we did before, but.
Yeah,
Same way
we need
we
to be
did
in,
Nancy's Place?
yeah, we need to be in the deed restrictions to meet the Older Persons Act.
Somebody 55 or older has to live there, is that correct?
80% must be
Okay,
55.
And it can be rented or bought? Or is this all total rental?
My understanding is this was rental, but I might defer to the developer and his engineer, but my understanding is it would be a rental product.
Is it designed as rental units or condos or? Yes, sir. Please come forward, give your name.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Steve Steele with Huddleston Steel Engineering. Our offices are at 2115 Northwest Broad in Murfreesboro. These are rental units, and this is designed to be senior or elderly housing. I have with me Mr. John Huff, who will be the developer, and Mr. Bernie Weinstein, who's the architect for the project.
How many first floor and how many second floor units? You know, how many elevators? I missed that too.
You know, I did not bring that with me. I think it's about split in thirds. Is it not, Bernie? How many first, second?
It is,
First floor has 30 units. Second floor and the third floor both have 33.
Okay. All right. Y'all have questions?
All interior elevator, right? No outside stairs or anything like that? Or is there a
believe-
fire code for that, or?
There is an interior elevator, but at both ends there are interior stairwells also to meet the fire code.
Okay.
I might mention, you asked about the fire hydrant test. We have not had time to flow test the hydrant and check that, but we will do that. We'll need to do that before we can submit plans to the state for both the water line and for the actual building itself.
Sure. I just remembered it was a question the last time I think we looked at it concerning water service and pressure.
Actually, I can kind of quickly answer that. There's a water line that comes off the tank up there with a pump that pumps out to the interstate, and the line that will serve this comes off of Enon Springs Road, which is the high pressure side or the high pressure zone. So we don't think we'll have any problem, but we'll confirm that.
Right. Okay.
I think originally that wasn't the case. It was coming off the low zone, but that was changed to come off that high pressure zone.
All right. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I know we had this approved some years ago, and I think the recession may have corrected the
We've had,
development.
yeah, because it was right before things started to slow down.
Yeah.
And we've had it, it's come back, or I've had folks talk to me about it several times since then, but no one's ever really brought it back to you all for another approval.
The main thing I appreciate is the willingness to make this for, I don't want to call them elderly, 55 and older. I would be classified elderly in that case, but I like the fact that we're finding housing for more of our seniors. We've been asking for that for a good while, and we're starting to see some of it. So if and when this goes forward, when you put a sign up, would you be so kind as to put that on the sign so we don't catch a lot of grief about it being an apartment complex? This is for seniors, and we want people to know it.
Anything else? Have a motion.
I move to approve the staff comments.
Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion at Mike. Any other questions or comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Under site plan number 2, Rock Springs Road, townhome.
This is the similar site plan you guys have seen multiple times previously. Situated on about 1.7 acres, located on the western side of Imperial Boulevard and north of Rock Springs Road. Currently zoned R6. The proposed use is for multifamily residential, which is allowed by right in this R6 district. Property is bounded to the north by multifamily apartments, to the east by Imperial Boulevard, south by Rock Springs Road, and to the west by an entrance to County Square Apartments. Surrounding zoning consists of R4, R5, and R6, and as proposed, the site may be accessed from a private drive adjoining the apartment complex in Imperial Boulevard. Square footage of vehicular use area, 20,419 square foot, which would require square footage of landscaping to be 2,042 square feet. Applicant is proposing for 3,252 square feet. Required parking of 2 per unit equals out to 44 spaces, and they're proposing for 45. And no handicap spaces are required for this type of development. Landscape plan submitted by the applicant shows a variety of trees and shrubs planted around the perimeter of the property, as well as street trees lining Rock Springs and Imperial Boulevard. The trees planted in landscaped islands, as well as shrubs in front and behind each of the units. Architectural elevations show the lower level of the front elevations be built with brick, and upper level a mix of hardy plank and hardy shingles. Right and left and rear elevations show hardy plank being used as the primary material. This site is located within the 100-year floodplain, and the future land use plan identifies proposed site as suitable for commercial development. I've got 3 standard comments and 3 staff comments. Staff comment 1, manhole A1 cannot enter at an angle less than 90 degrees. Staff comment 2, fire flow is 1,000 gallons per minute and run hydraulics at this fire flow. Staff comment 3, domestic water must be sized large enough to handle a sprinkler system. And with those comments, staff would recommend approval.
I think there was questions concerning how they were going to mediate the flood plain issues.
Yeah, I believe so.
How's that being done?
That was taken care of, and argued it, and
Other questions or comments?
Looks like interstate barricade to keep the cars from backing off into the 7-foot drop off into the ditch in the front. Treated post with metal guardrail like you'd see on the interstate, according to the detail on C8.1.
And I think there's some of that I'm looking at the rendering, they don't have that, but.
This gentleman's nodding yes, so I'm assuming he'd like to speak.
He is the engineer on the project.
Come forward, give your name and address, please.
Good evening, Jack Parker with Catalyst Design Group, 2650 Memorial Boulevard, Suite D, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Yes, sir, you're correct. It is, it is, but it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's a timber back guardrail, so it's not that wavy metal beam, it's not intended to be. Is that what it's showing?
According to your detail, it is.
Okay, well, they serve the same design function, but.
I understand.
Yeah, aesthetically, we probably would rather have it look a little different.
Thank you.
Is there a retention area on this site?
Yes, sir, it is.
Where?
It's underneath the parking.
Okay, underground?
Yes, sir.
So based on the guardrail and everything, is this what's actually gonna be built?
That reflects the design that is in those documents.
Other questions? How much are you actually raising this? A lot to get it out.
So the portion of the site where the actual buildings will be, we're probably adding between 3 and 3.5 feet of fill to get it above the 100-year floodplain, and then they'll be raised an additional 3 feet to the actual finished floors of those structures to comply with the ordinance.
So you're raising the lot 3 feet. What, in the parking area, is that the same as the building pad, or?
It's just below it, so that there's a curb, and then there'll be steps up into the house or into the townhomes.
So the parking lot could flood and they couldn't get out.
Yeah, and that's okay by code. But you can't flood the floor. That's why they've got it 3 feet higher. Finished floors, if you look at
Six or
6
6.5
feet,
feet.
it's 6.5 feet.
Well, the
What's
parking lot, the parking area, is that above the flood?
Not above the 100-year. It's
Okay.
above. It's right at the 50-year. So if there were to be a 100-year event, it would get up into the
So
parking lot.
what they said was accurate, it would flood the parking lot.
Correct. Well,
On a 100-year event.
in a 100-year event, correct. It wouldn't prevent people from being able to leave the site. It would just be difficult for you to drive out of the site. So pedestrian traffic can still traverse through.
As far as a renter, if a renter's renting here, will they have to carry flood insurance if they carry insurance?
They will not. The intent will be to procure elevation certificates for each unit, which will waive that requirement with a typical homeowner's insurance company.
These gonna be rental, or are they gonna be sale for purchase?
The intent is for sale to single owners.
The picture you all have here doesn't show any barrier up around the playground area. I'm assuming this is the main road here below it coming in. So if a car gets off track, there's nothing really to prevent it from going right into that playground area. Is that right?
There'll be a curb and gutter there, and then there's a planting strip and a sidewalk, just like.
So there's nothing to prevent a car from going in there?
There is no vehicular barrier
Okay.
to prevent that from happening, correct?
This is in an AE flood zone, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm under the impression you can't build up and out of a floodplain or flood zone simply by increasing the elevation. I think you're in the elevation, the elevations would affect the insurance in a positive manner by saying the first floor was X number of feet above the flood level or before the flood elevation, but I don't think you can actually build up and out of a flood area, flood zone.
What they could do, and I don't know what their plan is, but what you can do a flood, where you can cut and fill and create more water storage somewhere else in the same, on the property, and bring up an area and do amend the map so that the area is no longer in the floodplain because you elevated it out of the floodplain.
So that would have to have it,
Based on
that would
fill.
require certificate, you have to go out and survey it and
Absolutely.
change it.
It's FEMA, it's reviewed by
You
FEMA.
can't add or remove dirt. You can shuffle it around on the site.
Right.
You can, and that's what they're doing.
Correct.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but all your underground storage is where you're getting your material. A lot of it.
We're getting some of it from there, correct.
But that's where you're getting some, because they can't import material.
Where's the rest of it coming from?
It comes from portions of this drive aisle, and then the rest comes from this natural area that's in the front.
They're gonna lower the ditch.
Well, that's correct, but it really is only being lowered by
Right.
12 to 24 inches, so it's not a dramatic decrease in elevation on that.
Is
That's-
that exactly the same as what was presented last month?
Last month,
Yeah. What's different?
there's really nothing different from that perspective. What we did is we went back and we verified. You had the question about can you cut in the right of way,
Yes.
and so we went back and ran the analysis, and what we found is that there was not cut in the right of way. In fact, it's a fill condition because you're having to raise that area up for your curb and gutter, your grass strip, your sidewalk, and the 2-foot section behind it. So
how are you getting your offset?
it's being done on the property. So in effect, the property is taking on that burden of balancing the cut and fill on it.
But
rather
you're still
than,
cutting the ditch to get the material.
That's correct. So in essence, in the future,
But the
if,
ditch is not part of your property, correct?
yes, the ditch is part of the property.
I thought that was part of the right of way.
No,
A small portion is, close to the road. And he's not cutting in that, he's actually filling to get to the sidewalk. Where he's cutting is behind and out of the right of way. You're getting, and I'm not looking to be difficult, you're getting about a foot out of the bottom of the ditch that's there to put up for your building pad, and then you're getting the rest of it where you're putting in the detention tanks for your stormwater. Not yard for yard, but it's fairly close. That's the majority of it. And then you're getting the rest of your elevation by building the finished floor 3 feet above the finished grade.
Correct.
So from finished floor down to your parking lot is 5.5 feet. And that's where the steps come in your elevation.
Correct.
With the apartments themselves, homes themselves being raised up, is it going to be on a foundation? Or will it be concrete? What's going to be the base for the?
It's going to be a slab or a crawl space.
I don't know if that's been decided yet or not.
With it being 3 feet of, I would
That's a
think it'd be a
crawl
crawl
space. That's-
space.
It almost has
It'd
to
be
a crawl
awful
space.
expensive to fill it full of gravel and pour a turned down slab. I bet his foundation block and brick, 3 foot crawl space.
as long as they need the elevation.
Yeah, as long as they meet the
Correct.
elevation.
Yeah. So I didn't want to dictate the means and methods there, but you're
Most
right.
likely,
Most likely.
probably crawl space is material alone.
Crawl space, you could have water in there standing as well.
There's,
Actually,
I can show you a lot of places that's.
And just to clarify, the pad itself is above the 100-year, so there shouldn't be water getting in the crawl space either, if there is one.
Well, the crawl space is even with the drive, correct?
No.
Is it up a foot?
3 feet. Roughly,
To-
2.5
to the
to
floor
2.5 to
elevation.
3 feet from the parking lot to the bottom of the dirt, and then you got another 2.5 to 3 feet to get up to the floor level.
And
So
that's,
the finished floor to the parking lot 6.5 feet. So 3 of it is from dirt to the subfloor. The other 3 is the fill they're putting on to get out of the 100-year floodplain.
the reason for all the steps in the front.
Yes. He's creative.
Where, I assume somewhere have we approved a site knowing that the parking lot's in a 50-year flood area?
I can't recall off the top of my head whether we have or not. We may have.
That's still an issue for me, because people's cars are gonna get flooded.
In a 100-year flood event. Yeah.
Yes. And I think the other point is the playground. I don't think it has any security around it. Does it?
It's not shown, I mean, but
Okay.
certainly something could be done.
What's across the back line? Anything across the back? Fence or anything? How far is their back of these units to the property line? I assume it's
They're
probably
20
just
feet,
the minimum setback.
right. I don't think there's any fence or anything shown.
It's just green space,
That's correct. It backs up to the green space of the
the
apartment
existing,
behind it.
the existing property.
What's the wishes of the commission?
I'm gonna make one more comment and then I'll be quiet. I commend you for your creativity. You've done about all you can do. I never would have dreamed you could have got that close. 2 problems for me is the road is 24.5 and the finished floor is 30. So we're 6 feet from Rock Springs Road to the finished floor. So as you drive by, you're going to be looking at the bottom of the steps. And you've got this 2-story apartment sticking up. So, and it's close to the road. It's going to be tall. To me, it's going to look odd. I'm not saying it's going to be ugly or unattractive. It's just going to look odd sitting there. The potential for somebody to back through that gate or whatever they put up into that ditch is still there. And what they've done meets the requirements of the code, the 50-year floodplain. But I agree with the chairman. I have a concern that we're going to flood somebody's car. Now legally they can do it. I mean, it's all, what they've done is correct.
Well, I have a problem with the elevation of the parking lot. I have an issue from a security standpoint that there's no security across the back. I have a problem with the security in the play area. You know, there are certain pieces of property that it's X number of acres, you are allowed to get up to X number of units on there. That doesn't mean that every 1.7 acres supports 22 units, even though that is allowed. That is the maximum that is allowed. The nature of the property somewhat dictates the amount of units that you can really get on there. And I truly believe that if you reduce the units, you're able to solve a lot of these problems and make it work. I do have a problem approving something where I know somebody's car is going to flood, and it's going to happen. And, you know, we have talked about, even on the school project last time, about wanting fence in areas from the backyard.
Yeah, Roxbury.
You know,
Rocky Point.
there can be traffic all along the back part of these units. I just think it has a lot of issues, a lot of safety issues, and the safety issues just create a problem for me. But we all get a vote if we ever get a motion.
I make a motion we deny.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other, from safety and security issues?
Yes.
And the flooding on the 50-year area?
Correct.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on. Item 6, zoning ordinance amendment.
This is one we've looked at a few times, and we've tweaked it again to kind of look at it as far as the, in the C2 district only, add, or clarify a little bit of section 2.036, as well as add car wash and automobile detailing as a use allowed as a special exception in the C2 zone. It's under our zoning ordinance, it's classified as automotive service and repair, and to me it's a little different than a body shop or a transmission shop or something like that. So it's come up quite a bit since we changed the ordinance, and so this is just something I had reviewed and would recommend amending to allow it as a BZA review in the C2 zone. And that's my recommendation.
With it being allowed as a special exception, can you consider things like lot size and well, the issues that we've discussed before, how the stacking, things like that,
separation of parking lot from the road,
all those things,
screening, you know, anything like that that we would typically look at as that the BZA would look at would be something that could be looked at, yeah. And it would still be, of course, obviously anything new would still come to this body for a site plan anyway, but this would just be for the use in the C2 district.
but all those things can be considered
Certainly.
in looking at it.
Sure.
Okay. Y'all prepared to make a recommendation on this one tonight, or?
Are you?
The way it sits now, we still have control over it as a special exception, do we not?
Well, the way it sits now, you would have to have property zone C5 to do it, or do like what we had last month with the PUD request, which they had to request. They couldn't even request C5 because they didn't have an acre.
Right. They came as
So they had to come with a PUD.
Kind of worked.
It worked, and
Yeah.
if you all, that's fine. You know, we've had 2 or 3 folks have talked about it, and so I want to put it before you. So if you don't want to do it, that's fine. But I just want to at least bring it up for discussion.
I think for me personally, I've liked the C5 option, and then taking a look at what that product is, because it's auto something, and it kind of gives us a little bit of a blanket of coverage there, I guess, you know, just because we've been battling that a little bit for a while, but I can see the point, changing it as well, so.
Yeah.
Why don't we give it a month, bring it back next month? That's,
Okay.
I detect some hesitation, so let's study it a little bit.
Yeah, that's my,
Is that
probably
okay?
my wishes, yeah.
All right. Next one.
Next one is one that you haven't seen before. This is new. Council has asked us to look at something on traffic study requirements as far as kind of standardizing when those are required. We have certainly required several and have had several done, but so we kind of researched this. We looked at requirements from some of the communities around us, Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, Nashville, as well as other cities around the state, as well as there's some recommended practice from the ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers. This would establish when it's required and what kind of guidelines that it would have to meet. Essentially, it would require a traffic study when a proposed development would generate 1,000 trips per day or 100 trips per day at the peak hour. Would be required to be submitted with if a PUD request, site plan, or sketch plat, whichever is the first stage of a particular development. And then basically there's 3 different levels of study depending on the amount of traffic that would be generated. Level 1 would only be required if a site is located where there is a known safety issue, such as a blind curve or something like that, or some other site-specific concern. Level 2 and 3 would always be required, and again, it just depends on the amount of traffic generated by the developer. So this is really just kind of standardizing when these would be required instead of us kind of having to make a recommendation. You know, kind of flying by the seat of our pants a little bit, and so this kind of standardizes it, puts it in writing so it's clear for everyone, and it's pretty consistent with what the communities around us require and when they require them and the type that they require and the type of detail that's required and all that is pretty well kind of standard practice amongst most of the communities around us. So that's our recommendation.
All right, so it would be required with a PUD request that meets the 1,000 or 100 trips.
At the peak hour, right. So it would be if it's, you know, it kind of depends on the use, obviously. We did that. Some cities actually will say if it's 75 units or a residential or a 50,000 square feet building. Well, 50,000 square feet of mini storage is not going to hit that number, but 50,000 square feet of retail is going to more than hit that number. So rather than just saying a square footage of a building or whatever, we said more than the trips per day. Most cities do trips per day. There's a few that do the, you know, if it's 75, most 70 or 75 units or 100 homes in a subdivision or something like that. That's kind of the level. As far as those vehicle trips, that's really the level you're looking at. for residential is in that 75 to 100 range. Would it get you to the 100 per day at the peak hour?
Is this something from a staff perspective that you would like to see, and do you see this as beneficial?
Yeah, I would like to see it, just because again it kind of standardizes when, instead of us as a staff trying to we think, because we think this development needs to have a traffic study or not, this kind of puts it in writing, very clear for everybody. It's for the developers, the engineers that do projects here, is clearly in writing when they have to, when they don't have to. So I think it's to standardize when we do things, and being consistent, yes, I think is a good thing.
And then when we actually get the finished product, it's up to us to take it and do with it as we see. And are we actually bound by the four corners of the document, or is there something that as a staff or as a planning commission that we think?
Well, absolutely, we have to evaluate that study, because believe me, we've had some studies that Tom and I looked at, and we're like, they kind of miss, I feel like they missed some stuff, know, and so, so yeah, we would definitely have to evaluate the study and give them feedback on that study,
Okay.
certainly.
Which sort of brings up my question, because I know in the past we've had some studies that, we've approved development for commercial, residential, whatever it is, but, and then moving forward, a year goes by, 2 years goes by, the next study is done, and then somebody missed something on the first study. So they want us to go back now and go off-site and have an improvement made off-site that should have been caught in that initial study. Does that make sense? So if there's a way to stop that from happening, future growth plans, the comprehensive, whatever it is, when they do these studies, I can recall one we had like that where they asked us to go back and improve a turn lane. It had nothing to do with the development, and it was blocks away. So how can we stop that from happening?
Well, I think we have to have, when you have a traffic study that gets done today, sometimes the conditions change or whatever. 2 years ago, a traffic study is done, and now they're moving forward with the development. Well, in the meantime, you've had 2 more subdivisions approved along that road or something like that.
Question.
So it does change. Sometimes the background conditions change or whatever. And also, when you kind of standardize it when it's required, you're going to have probably going to have more of them, and so you're going to have some. This guy's going to have his study, but we're going to have the study that was done for the development down the street, and so there's going to be some. There's going to be some economies of scale probably on that. Plus, you'll have that one's going to build on the one that was done, because you're going to add this 200 lot subdivision. They did a study, and we know what we need to do for that. Well, now this guy's adding 200 more lots, and in addition to the 200 lots there, so now there's going to be 400 on that road. So now you're going to have to that the turn lane the first guy was going to put in might need to get it extended 100 feet, for more stacking or something like that. So
in a fast-growing community, in a fast-growing county like we are, I would only hope that people who are doing these studies take those things into consideration. You got a 30, 40 acre tract of land, 50 acre tract of land next to a development. Let's go ahead and get these corrections made so that we don't have to come back and do them later.
In my experience, dealing with other municipalities, the first guy there gets to put it all in.
Yeah.
And they're going to squeal. Seriously, I mean, when you pick the industrial section over there by the airport, well, the guy that came wanted to add more trucks, the other overnight trucking service guy, well, when you do a traffic study for him, you need another lane and you got to go further back. Well, sometimes they overcorrect the other way, and the first guy there gets to put all that in and pay for the traffic lights and everything. Then as it builds out, those other people don't pay anything. So it's either the first guy pays it or the last guy pays it. So that may be the key. So,
and we do have a little bit of, with the impact fees, the first guy, he might have to spend the money to put the traffic signal in, but maybe he can
We
get
can
some
offset
offset
his
his impact fees, and the last guy doesn't get that. So, I mean, there's a balance somewhat.
And we've done some things, the school board has done some things with the city where we saw things were gonna be, maybe not necessarily us, and we've made financial contribution to a future turning signal or something like that. If there's potential there that if we could talk to some of the developers where they don't share all of the burden of doing it, if there's a way to, we've done it.
Well, I think part of the study's got to take into account the inventory of land and potential that's around it.
That's why I asked.
And
Yeah.
they don't.
Well, and maybe we need to
That's
look
where
at,
we, I think that's where
what
we
need
as
to
a,
look at.
and I'm
Right.
looking at Kevin and Tom now, as a staff, need to say, we see the potential here, the traffic study says this, but we see the potential maybe, and I don't know how you do that.
Well, I guess that gets me to my question. You have 100 acres here.
Mhm.
You have a guy developing 20. Are you saying he is responsible for what's gonna happen to that other 80?
In some municipalities, yes.
That's right, yeah. Now, what I'm saying is, as far as his goes, Kevin's example was the turn lane distance for his.
Yes.
Maybe instead of it being 60 feet, maybe it needs to be 100 because we know what the inventory is. I'm not necessarily saying he's got to go take care of the whole road, but in Mark's example, something, I think I know the project, something came in and the intersection around that wasn't even addressed, but there was an inventory around there so that when something developed down there, then there was an impact down here, and the first guy's kind of, I don't want to say off the hook, but he's not responsible at that point in time. So
But they did pay their impact fees.
they did. So I guess what I'm saying is, for that particular plat, when we're looking at it, if we're taking into account what the potential is, and there's an intersection near his or an entrance or whatnot, maybe when we're addressing that plat, we're looking at it from a turn lane perspective or something where maybe it's an expanded turn lane or it's an improvement at an intersection, so that, it's here, but the guy down here isn't taking care of it.
And we have done that in some cases.
Yes.
What I'm thinking of is Bulldog Drive, when the apartments came in. Of course, that was a private street at that point in time.
Created a signal though, didn't it?
Became public. But also, we were looking at it from a future standpoint because that's a limited access
Yes.
road. And I think that there is enough right-of-way there for up to 6 lanes?
I think it was five or
Five or
yeah,
six.
maybe 6 at the
Now,
turn.
certainly not all
Six.
built at one time, but
The land's there.
the land's there where the developer did share into what's coming in the future, but wasn't necessarily required to build a 6-lane road today.
Right.
So I think there's ways to do these things, and I think we've tried to look at it. I have a question, and I'm not sure what I'm asking, don't know how unreasonable it is, but is there a way to look at these guidelines and take the last month or two as to what's come in to see what would have required,
Would it have changed it?
how it would have affected the projects that we've looked at, just so we get a feeling of, okay, this is going to affect this project, or this project?
Yeah, we can probably, we could look at that project, specific type stuff, or we could also, there's some standard things you could say, a certain number of apartments or a certain number of single family, a certain amount of retail, a certain amount of industrial, manufacturing, whatever. At what level does it typically kick in? And give you some of that, but also look at,
And what
the
are
last
our
6 months or so.
guidelines or rules or regulation as to who we accept a traffic study from?
well, we have that in here already. It's just somebody who has, a licensed engineer in Tennessee
Okay,
and has training Can't remember how exactly it was worded.
I assumed we had something, I didn't know what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, shall be prepared by a registered professional engineer in good standing with the state of Tennessee and with specific training and experience in traffic engineering. They have to stamp it.
Can they do their own?
Typically, it's not a good idea.
Well, I'm just asking, can they do their own? An engineer that's doing a development that is
I
also
mean, yeah, we've
certified?
had that in the past.
I would not.
No.
Yeah.
I typically have someone else other than the engineer that's working for
Our
us to do
preference
the
is
traffic
somebody
study.
else. Our
Third
preference
party.
is somebody else.
Okay.
Well,
You know,
the-
and maybe we want to, I don't know if we want to put that in there or not, that a third-party engineer from the developer's engineer, whatever. but-
Well, I think there's been 2 or 3 that we've had that, I don't want to use the term had. We have asked for a traffic study. If this had been in place, I don't think we would have had to have asked for it. It would have automatically kicked in.
Right.
Well, oh, I'm sure that there are. What I'd like to know is,
How many?
you know, which ones are they?
Yeah, we can certainly look at that.
Because then it makes it fair for everybody. They know it's coming up front instead of us having to be the bad guys asking for it.
Kevin, also with that on F, it says it's good for a 5-year traffic
Right.
study impact. Should it be 5 years?
Well, and we talked about that, you know, that may be too long. Most of the cities I looked at did have 5-year expiration, you know.
So what
Basically,
exactly does that mean?
Basically it means if they do something and if they give us a traffic study and 5 years later they haven't turned the first spade of dirt, that traffic study is probably, the conditions have changed enough, there's traffic growing from other things or whatever, that they probably need to reevaluate and redo it.
But if
Do
they
we
have
still
started,
have the right to request that?
Yeah, we do. And basically, and if they've started work, and basically we say at least 50% of the project build out in units or size in that 5 years is, if they've made progress, we wouldn't ask them to do it again, basically.
How
It's
long
only
are the approved plans good for? A year?
a site plan is good for a year unless the building permit's been pulled. Subdivision plat, you know, a final plat approval, as long as they've started construction, a final plat really is good forever. So you could have a final
So if they
plat
have a
approval
building
that
permit
lasts
after a year, they'd have to resubmit.
for a building permit on a commercial or on a site plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, a final plat, you know, you could have houses being built for several years also, if it's large enough development, certainly, you know, multi-phases. So, we can certainly look at that, look at kind of some criteria or thresholds where you're going to hit to that, you know, 100 units at the peak, or 100 trips at the peak hour or whatever, and also look at it from a specific type, you know, specifically the developments you all have looked at in the last, you know, 6 months or whatever.
If for some reason something didn't hit one of these, but we really felt that we needed it, do we still have,
Yeah.
can we still ask for it? Or have we somewhat limited ourselves to not asking for it?
Yeah, if they don't meet the trip generation criteria, we can still require it if it's on a site located at or near existing or planned signalized intersection. Development's location could create safety concerns due to topography, roadway geometry, or is near a known high crash or accident location.
we've had a few of those already too.
So even if they're not necessarily a high, but it's, their access is the only access they
We
get.
have a way to still ask.
We still have a way to ask for it, yeah.
Or require.
And that's kind of that, you know, we can still ask for it if we're concerned about it from a safety concern or something like that.
Could we get that additional information in next month on this one?
Sure.
Are y'all okay with that? Bond review.
We got one more thing first. The one little mandatory
Mandatory
referral.
referral,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Yeah, this is a project that the town's been working on Nolan Drive, kind of relocating Nolan Drive further to the east and straightening out straightening it out. Kind of create a more direct connection between Sam Ridley Parkway and Lowry Street. We've also had sidewalks. We've also provided a way for a future connection to Lee Victor Park. There's actually two property owners this affects. One is the Rutherford County, Smyrna Rutherford County Airport Authority. They have reviewed this or going to give us an easement. They can't give us property because of the FAA requirements, so they would be giving us an easement. And then there's a private property owner that would be crossing as well, that we will be acquiring the right-of-way fee simple there. Again, they have verbally agreed to donation of that. This is basically just a review. Council has to review it as well. Planning Commission is required to review it and just to find whether or not it's in keeping with the adopted comprehensive plan and make a recommendation, and staff would recommend approval of this. And we did have the map that kind of reflects what the easements and right-of-way that we would be obtaining.
Would we be abandoning the existing road, or it remain?
At this time, we're not looking at abandoning that existing road.
So all that
could be
pavement still
something in the
stays
future.
there and it's still usable?
Could, yes. Long term, there could be parking or something added if we ever needed additional parking for the event center or something like that, or for the park. That's something that could be down the road. At this time, though, we're just looking at the roadway improvements, and we would be looking at, closing the road off with, bollards or something. But
Pardon?
we would be closing the old road off with bollards or something like that. But it would be maintaining it in place, at least initially.
Oh, so it's not usable then, you're closing it off?
Yeah, you wouldn't be, we could use it, we could use it if we needed it. But we would not, it would not be, the road would, you would, if you're coming up Nolan Drive, you would go straight across to the intersection there now. And then you would have access back to the event center with coming to the left. Yeah, it would be, like I said, we would be using the existing Nolan Drive, which still could be used if we needed it, but we would not be through traffic.
Where they intersect there, would that be a 3 or 4-way stop, or would it be a roundabout?
It was a roundabout.
Okay. Because the part that's not finished, would that eventually or potentially go to the rec park back
Correct.
entrance?
It would try to connect
In
the
that
back entrance to the
parking
rec
lot.
park, so you wouldn't have to, you could get into the park without having to go off Sam Ridley Park.
Which there is there is a right of way in there now. Of course, you can barely see it on this, but there is a road that runs in there now. Okay.
And what do you need from us?
This is just a recommendation to the council as a mandatory, since we're acquiring property for public purpose. Planning Commission is
motion.
required to approve.
Motion to approve.
Have a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we'll move on to bond review.
All right, got several this month. Bankside, Section 3. This is actually an escrow account. We had several items, punch list items here from Public Works and one from Utilities. Talked to the developer, they said we'll get that punch list completed. They have paved it. We do have the final topping down. We would recommend a reduction here to 30,000, so we got quite a bit to do, cleanup items, but extend it 1 year and use that as their maintenance bond period. Lennox Phase 1, Section 2B, and they have recently done the final topping on that and did talk with them. They did request just to extend the existing bond in 1 year, which would, for their maintenance bond, and so we would recommend that for their maintenance period. Addition to Village of Valley Green, Section 2A. They again talked to the developer there. They did just recently put their topping down, and they have a punch list to finish up there. That's already fairly low at 10,400. So we'd recommend extend that 1 year as their maintenance bond. Woodmont Phase 3B had a couple items that are actually kind of fall on the border between Phase 3B and 4. So we would recommend, this is the end of the maintenance period on this one, and since those items are also covered under Phase 4, we would recommend release of this letter of credit. Buckingham Section 2 Phase 1 did have some punch list items there from Public Works. They do plan to talk to the developer. They do plan to get everything finished up and paved in the next few weeks. We've only had this one 1 year. We would recommend extending this one at the same amount, just for that 1 year period. If they get done with the topping, we might could look at converting that to their maintenance bond. Hidden Hills, Section 4, Phase 1, was unable to speak with us, this developer here. They'd have, basically everything is done other than the temporary turnaround and as-built. So we would recommend a reduction to 10,000 and extend that 1 year as a maintenance bond, so they did just recently pave that. And then Villages of Green Tree, Section 2, Phase 2, again, was not able to speak with that developer. He does have a few things to clean up, but he did do the topping. So we would recommend a reduction of that to 20,000 and extend it 1 year as the maintenance bond. And that's what I have.
I'm not voting on this one. Okay, have a motion.
Move to approve the bond review report.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any other business to come before the commission?
I don't have anything else.
I want to remind everybody about the fish fry.
Let the Rotarian do it there.
Fish fry this Saturday. Gates open at 4 p.m. This is the major fundraiser for this end of the county. Jerry helped me. We're over $160,000 raised so far. Our goal is 180, so we need a lot of people out there that are very hungry and want to eat some fish and have a good time. And, you know, not only does it benefit the community, but you're going to see your community out there. So it's just a good family, friend get-together for everyone. So we hope to see you out this Saturday, 4 p.m. The gates open.
At the airport.
At the airport. Thank you.
Anything else? Please stand adjourned.